Zhiyun Smooth 5 is the most cinematic mobile gimbal you'll find on the market under $200. It's beating even the DJI OM5. In this episode I'll show you a full tutorial. Let's go to record some stuff. We are in Sofia, Bulgaria, in the middle of the city. What makes that gimbal special is that you have 360 rotation and the tilt axis is not restricted. Because of that, you're able to mount really huge phones. That is S22 Ultra with a bumper case. The bumper case makes that phone really massive. Let's record the first shot. I'll put the gimbal in pan follow mode. That means that it will follow only my left and right movement. It will not follow up and down. So in front of me there is a beautiful church. I'll put the gimbal horizontally, and while I'm moving towards the church, I'll press gently the joystick up, and like that we are getting two motions in one. That gimbal is really good to create a combo motions. One of the issues of the gimbal is the motor sensitivity. When you open the Zhiyun app, you have only two options. Here is the scene mode, is walk, that's the regular speed, and if you go to run, you go to sport mode and the gimbal becomes very responsive. But the issue is when you record with the telephoto lens. So let's zoom to the telephoto lens. Here when you use the Zhiyun app, you can use the wheel for the zoom. You can see how sensitive is the telephoto lens because you cannot control the gimbal sensitivity. Let's say that's our subject, we want to record the top of the church. The trick here is to select your subject, and now the gimbal will lock on the subject, and no matter how you move, everything will be smooth. Let's press record and go around the church. That trick applies if you record people as well. The only thing you have to be careful with the tracking is the contrast. If you have high contrast, you'll never have problems. The gimbal has 5 modes and you can easily control them with the mode button right here. There is a small display displaying in which mode you are. Unfortunately, when it's very bright outside, you can't see the display. You have to really put one of your eyes and cover the displays to be able to see it. But it's very easy to recognize in which mode you are. Just move the gimbal and see how it moves. The first mode is the pan follow. It follows only left and right, not up and down. Next we have the lock. When you move it, the phone doesn't move at all. The only way how to control it is with the joystick. Next we have the follow mode. It will follow up, down, left and right. Next we have the POV. The gimbal follows all the axes, even diagonally. Next is the vertigo mode. Just press the joystick left or right and the phone will just spin. That mode it's perfect when you're in a corridor, in some underground section. It looks amazing. The most unique part about that gimbal is that you can do fake drone shots and you can do the crane shots because you're not restricted through the tilt axis. You can go really close to the ground and pick the gimbal up high, put some extension and play with some crane shots. I mounted the gimbal to my small tripod. Now we can go close to the ground and pick it up high in the air. And we have the perfect fake drone shot or crane shot. Of course you can use also bigger tripod. Just at the moment that's the biggest one I have. Over there are a lot of pigeons. Let's try to record them in slow motion. Will be a lot of fun. For more crazy gimbal transitions and shots, check out that episode here.
The phone is not balanced at all. To balance the phone is really easy. Here there is a knob, so just unlock that one here and push the shoulder. Ooh, from the first time. I'm a magician. Nice. And the next thing is to balance that axis. So you always have to balance two axes with that gimbal. You can push that one in or out. You place the phone face down and you start pushing it until it's nicely balanced. Okay, that seems perfect. Yeah, now our gimbal is perfectly balanced and we are ready to start it. The gimbal has quite a lot of buttons and functionalities, but I'm using only half of them because I'm using the default camera application most of the time. 90% of the time that gives me the best quality. And the great thing about that gimbal is that they made it fully operational through the buttons. So let's start with the button combination. At the moment you tap 2 times the trigger button, it will reset the position. 3 times, it will go to selfie mode. When you're using the Zhiyun app, if you press the trigger button once, it will go in tracking mode. The tracking mode works only when you're in the Zhiyun application. Here we have our record button. In front of the gimbal you will find the charging port. It comes with the USB-C, and I'm pleasantly surprised that supports fast charging. The gimbal will not burn if you plug it to the 15 or 20 watt fast charger. And here on top we have another USB-C port. When you connect the phone to that port, it will supply it with power. So the gimbal acts as well as a power bank, which is amazing. One disadvantage of that gimbal compared to the smaller brothers is the rotation. You can't switch from portrait to landscape and from landscape to portrait easily. You have to turn off the gimbal first, rotate it, rotate the motor, rebalance the whole phone. You have to rebalance also the arm here. And only after 30 seconds to a minute, you're ready to execute in portrait mode. So with that gimbal, you really have to decide what you're gonna shoot in advance. We will shoot for social media or for YouTube. Now let's go through the Zhiyun application and show you how to operate with it, because there are a couple of settings that are very important and I'm constantly using them when I'm filming. Here is the home screen. Usually when the gimbal is on, it will automatically connect to it. If it doesn't connect to it, it will not allow you to enter to the app. When you're in the Zhiyun app, all the buttons of the gimbal work. The one that I use the most is the huge circle here. When you rotate it, you switch between the lenses. So 0.5, 1 and the telephoto. If you press the button here, it will change the mode of the circle. Instead of changing the lenses, it will change the focus. But I prefer switching between the different lenses. Here on top you have your video resolutions. I always film in 4K. Most of the time I film in 60 frames per second, because when you use the gimbal we want to capture some epic motion, or in 30 frames per second. Another thing that Zhiyun did extremely well is the tracking. So when you click on the display and you drag, it will automatically start tracking the subject, and it does extremely well job keeping it. One downside is that you can't lock the exposure when the tracking is working. You can go in the manual mode, but there is a problem with the manual mode. So right now we shoot with ISO 30 and the shutter is 1/250th of a second. When we go to the manual mode, you can't dial ISO lower than 100. And when it's very bright sunny outside, you cannot dial the proper exposure. Now, because I'm filming inside, I don't have that problem. I can just easily go to 1/250th of a second and I will have my exposure. Actually, I have to go to 1/1000th of a second. Here on the right side, you have the EV. When the EV is 0, that means that your exposure is perfect according to the algorithm. If the EV is positive, that means that you have something overexposed on the image. 2 means that you're 2 stops overexposed. And if you go the other way, now we are -3, that means that we are 3 stops underexposed. Overexposed means that you're crushing the highlights and everything is white. Underexposed means that you're crushing the shadows and the shadows are black. Both cases are bad, so try to keep always the EV around 0. So very often I'm filming in auto mode because of the ISO issue. I forgot to mention the most important thing: always calibrate your gimbals, especially when they're brand new. So in the Zhiyun app, you have to come to that menu, here to gimbal, scroll down and gimbal auto calibration. You have to position the gimbal on a flat surface, on a table, and let's calibrate it. That step is very important because in that way the gimbal will calibrate according to the weight of the phone and it will provide you with the smoothest footage. Otherwise the motors would be too weak or too powerful. When they're too powerful, they introduce jitters. When they're too weak, your horizon level is not good because the gimbal cannot handle the movement. All the good gimbal companies have that feature. There are some crappy gimbals I know, they don't have it. So always calibrate your gimbal. Under the scene mode is the follow mode. Here you go through all the gimbal modes. You can choose them manually and the gimbal will automatically switch. I prefer using the mode button. Next we have the joystick speed. And here is the ridiculous part that you have fast, medium and slow. It would be so good if the gimbal motors had the same. I hope they will introduce it with some update after watching my videos. So please send them my video with the minute where I'm discussing that problem so they can fix it. Next we have the invert pan and tilt. I usually do the invert tilt. In that way, when you press up, the gimbal goes down, and when you press down, the gimbal goes up. For me, it's more comfortable that way. Now let's go to the shoot menu. The first setting is the flash. When you get the combo package, it comes with a small detachable flashlight. It's really comfortable. You can throw it from here. And there is a special button here. When you press it, you turn it on or off. Next, we have the microphone. That setting may look useless, but with that gimbal is not exactly like that. Here, we have a screw mount, so we can easily attach some accessories to the gimbal. You can attach a microphone or a light, more powerful light. I just reviewed those small lights, the video is here, they're really good, I can highly recommend them and they're really powerful. You can operate the gimbal in that way and you'll be like the news reporters. Next we have the grid lines, you can turn them on or off. I always film with the grid lines, they help me make better composition. Here is buried the white balance. If you want a consistent white balance, if you know that you're shooting some B-roll sequence and your white balance shouldn't move, you have to come here, press white balance, but of course first you have to go to manual mode and now you'll be able to switch to manual white balance. And then here you can go custom or you can go sunny. When I'm filming outside I usually go sunny and in that way you lock your white balance. Now let's go back to auto. Next we have smart shooting. I think the gimbal will give you some hints, I always keep it off. And then we have the HDR. If I want to record HDR video, I'll use the default camera application. That camera produces good footage when it's sunny outside. In challenging conditions, the Zhiyun app is not perfect. The default camera application will give you better quality. Here on top we have the beauty modes. So never use the beauty mode, turn them off, they're not perfect, better use some Instagram filter. If you want to record slow motion, again better use the default camera application. Next you have a dolly zoom and it works quite nicely. So mark the subject and on top you have target resending and target approaching. That means one way you go towards the subject, the other one will go away from the subject. Press the record button and we start walking slowly backwards. And in that way we create the dolly zoom. When we are ready, we just stop it and the gimbal will generate the dolly zoom for us. I prefer doing it the manual way because the result is much better. You can check the tutorial here. So here is the result. It's a bit pulsing, not that bad, but still manual way, much better. Next we have the time lapse. Here the cool thing is that you can record 4K time lapses. With the default camera application of the iPhone, you cannot record 4K time lapses. With the Zhiyun app, you can. Here you have the menu, you can choose the interval. 0.5 seconds is quite cool if you have some really fast clouds or you're recording cars. And if you want to speed the time, I would recommend you to use 2 or 3 seconds of interval. Next we have the hyperlapse and those are the most jaw-dropping videos you can ever create. How the hyperlapse works. You mark the subject, the phone will start tracking it. When you press the record button, the phone will start recording a time lapse, but while the phone records the time lapse, you start creating a motion by yourself. The phone will keep the subject in the middle. Your job is to create a smooth motion with your legs. Full tutorial here, those are the best videos you can ever create. Everyone will be very impressed. We have a couple of more buttons on the gimbal we didn't check. The first one is the gallery button. It's here on the bottom under the light. When you press it, you can check the gallery. When you press the light, you can preview the video. Press one more time the gallery button and you will go back to the camera. On top, when you press the black and white square, you can choose the different resolutions. Next, we have the menu button. When you press it, it will bring the smart videos. Those are really nice show-off videos. When you choose the one you like, the gimbal will give you instructions how to record 1, 2 or 3 videos and to merge them in one final clip, which is perfect when you're just starting. Definitely experiment with that function. I hope you enjoyed that episode. See you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, like, check the other videos over here. and don't forget to smile. Bye.